Imagine a small, quiet fishing town along the US coast. The salty breeze drifts across the shore, children chase each other on the sand, and the smell of smoked seafood lingers in the air. Life feels simple, until a horrifying truth comes to light. Cedar Bay, once a peaceful seaside community, suddenly drew national attention. How could something as harmless as seafood seasoning, usually paired with a family dinner, turn out to hide a nightmare beyond imagination? Behind the warm smile of a local seller was a secret that froze the blood of everyone who heard it. This wasn't just about food, it was about lives that vanished, never to return. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the chilling mystery of Cedar Bay, the story of seafood paste made with human flesh. A gruesome crime buried beneath the charm of a coastal town. On the northern shoreline of Maine sits Cedar Bay, not far from where a winding river empties into the Atlantic. From a distance, the place looks idyllic. Fishing boats painted in bright colors sway gently at the dock. Children's laughter carries down the boardwalk, while the salty air mixes with the scent of tiny shrimp laid out to dry in front yards. For generations, Cedar Bay's lifeline has been the sea. Each dawn, the men head out to fish, while the women prepare seafood, dry fish, and make shrimp paste, a local specialty and a symbol of pride. Guests from the city always heard the same thing: you have to try Cedar Bay's shrimp paste, the taste is unlike anywhere else. Among the many sellers, one name stood out: Martha Collins. Her sun-marked face and strong build showed the resilience of a woman in her 50s. For 2 decades, she was known simply as Martha Paste, because her products were said to be the best. At the town market, people lined up early just to buy from her. The yard of her modest home was always buzzing. Even from the street, the sharp, savory scent of her paste drifted in the air. The pounding of shrimp, the chatter of workers, and the clatter of tools filled the space with life. Outsiders admired her. Martha's blessed, her house is nice, her kids go to school, all thanks to her paste. She seemed the picture of success. Yet, behind her smile, some swore her eyes held something cold, like a secret she carried alone. Years earlier, her husband, David, had vanished without explanation. Since then, she supported her 2 children, Ethan and Lily, by herself. Villagers admired her strength, working tirelessly from dawn to late night without complaint. Martha's a remarkable woman, they said. But in a close-knit town, walls are thin and secrets slip through. On certain nights, neighbors claimed they heard strange sounds from Martha's house. Some described crying, others swore they heard a man's voice begging for help. By sunrise, everything appeared normal again. The doors were locked and Martha greeted everyone with calm politeness. Probably just the TV, she'd say. And who would dare doubt a hardworking widow who was so generous to the community? Still, one thing left people puzzled. Martha's shrimp paste didn't taste like anyone else's. Its aroma was sharper, the flavor richer, strangely addictive. Once someone tried it, they couldn't eat any other brand. Even vendors from the nearest city drove to buy in bulk. When asked about her secret, Martha would just smile thinly: family recipe. No one could explain how she made it so unique. And so, behind the town's bustling market and quiet nights, a sinister truth stayed hidden. A truth that would one day make Cedar Bay infamous. Martha's past wasn't as simple as it seemed. She was born to a poor fishing family in a nearby coastal town. Her father died early, her mother fell ill, and as a teen Martha worked at markets peeling shrimp, drying fish, and selling whatever she could. Life was harsh, but she endured. She eventually married David, a harbor worker. At first, people thought her life would improve, but David was violent and cruel. He drank constantly, started fights, and often turned his rage on his wife. Neighbors sometimes heard Martha crying after his beatings. One night her face was swollen and bruised, but by morning she was back to drying shrimp with a smile. That's just how some marriages go, neighbors muttered. But everything changed in the stormy winter of 2016. On a night filled with thunder, David disappeared. Some said he'd sailed off with fishermen. Others whispered he ran away with another woman in Portland. No one knew. Martha never gave answers. From that day forward, she worked harder than ever. Her paste grew more popular, her money grew, her home improved, and her children stayed in school. People praised her as an example of strength. But inside her home, shadows lengthened. Her son Ethan grew reckless, drinking heavily, often starting fights, echoing his father's worst habits. Lily, her daughter, became withdrawn, often staying with friends rather than face the heavy silence of her house. Then, one stormy night in 2022, neighbor Thomas Reed heard something strange through Martha's thin walls. A hoarse voice pleaded, "Please, help me." He froze, pressing closer, as the sound of a chair crashing was followed by silence. The next day, when he cautiously asked Martha, she calmly replied, "The rain was loud, I stayed up watching TV dramas." "You must have heard that." Her words were steady, but Thomas couldn't forget the dark stain on her porch, faint but unmistakable, like blood. He whispered it to neighbors. Some believed him, others dismissed it, probably drunkards or rats. Gossip swirled, then faded, but unease clung to the town. Even her workers noticed strange things. One woman swore she saw Martha carrying a sack filled with red, fleshy meat. When she asked about it, Martha waved it off. "Just fish scraps, it adds flavor." But the smell in the kitchen wasn't fish. It was thick, metallic, revolting. The worker quit soon after, as did others, unable to endure the stench or Martha's cold gaze. Yet her business only grew. Meanwhile, Lily often cried to her friends, "I'm terrified when I'm home. It feels like something's behind the walls, watching." The friend never knew how to respond. Around town, Martha donated to events, gave to officials, even helped fix the church roof, making it harder for anyone to question her. Yet the atmosphere in Cedar Bay shifted. People respected her, but fear crept in. Every time they smelled her paste, suspicion whispered beneath the praise. Then disappearances began. In December 2022, a drifter named Kyle vanished. He often hung near the docks, sometimes helping fishermen, sometimes drinking. Most shrugged, but his elderly mother wept. "He never leaves without telling me. Even drunk, he always came home." Her grief unsettled the town. By April 2023, another, Renee, a lottery ticket seller, was last seen asking Martha for a glass of water. She never returned. Rumors grew. By July, a teenager named Daniel, a construction helper, disappeared after working near Martha's house. 3 vanishings in 7 months. Too many to ignore. Some clung to denial, maybe they moved to the city. But Thomas remembered the voices, the stains, the smells. Lily whispered to friends, "I hear voices in the kitchen. They never come back." Fear spread, though most stayed silent. At the market, men debated, "Her paste is amazing, but isn't it odd?" One joked, "Secret recipe." Another muttered, "Funny how business booms every time someone disappears." Nervous laughter followed, but doubt had taken root. Soon, people saw Martha and Ethan carrying heavy sacks into the woods at night. Others noticed splashes in the dark river near the docks. Ethan grew more unhinged, stumbling drunk, fighting shadows. Still, no one accused her directly, she had powerful friends. Lily, breaking under the weight of fear, confided in the town nurse, Mrs. Hayes, "I'm afraid of my own mother. I hear screams, I see stains in the kitchen. Something's wrong." The nurse, shaken, admitted she too had smelled strange odors near the Collins home, not like shrimp paste. She promised Lily, "You're not alone. The truth will come out." Whispers reached a young journalist, Natalie Parker, who had family nearby. Sensing a story, she began collecting accounts, fragments of rumors that pointed toward something unthinkable. The missing people, the overpowering paste, the locked doors. Fear consumed Cedar Bay. On stormy nights, residents barred doors and prayed. One such night, Thomas again heard screams from Martha's kitchen, "Please, I have children." The struggle ended with silence. Through the cracks he caught the smell, not shrimp but rust, rot, and death. His mind raced with the faces of the missing. He wanted to speak, but terror bound his tongue. By morning, the town seemed normal again. Kids ran to school, women dried fish, life went on. Outside Martha's porch, Thomas saw another faint, dark stain. She stepped out smiling, a basket in hand. "Mr. Reed, come by, I have a fresh batch." "Best smell yet," she said. He forced a polite smile and walked away, but his heart pounded. Deep down he knew the truth. He just couldn't say it aloud. Will he strike back? The thought alone sent chills down his spine. Every time he walked by that house, his skin prickled, his steps quickened, and silence clung to him. At the same time, the town market buzzed with rumors. Some shoppers swore they smelled something foul clinging to the shrimp paste. Others whispered about seeing Ranga dragging heavy sacks into the backyard after midnight. What could be inside? They murmured. Nadia Prameswary, a young reporter from New York with family ties nearby, grew fascinated. She filled her notebook with fragments of villagers' stories. A pattern stood out. Each disappearance circled back to Mrs. City's house. But Nadia knew, without hard evidence, it was still nothing but whispers. Meanwhile, Ayu grew restless. Nights at home became unbearable, so she often slept at friends' houses or even curled up in the church hall. One night, through tears, she confided to midwife Mrs. Rahayu, "Ma'am, I can't stand it anymore. Last night I saw Mom scrubbing rags soaked with something dark at the well. Her hands shook, but her face was blank. I'm so scared." Mrs. Rahayu's heart ached. Ayu's fears echoed her own suspicions. She too had noticed the strange metallic odor drifting from the yard. She wrapped Ayu's hand gently. "Don't be afraid, sweetheart. Something is wrong, truth finds a way out. But don't face this alone." The same unease spread at the docks. Fishermen whispered after spotting Siti and Ranga hauling sacks toward the water's edge late at night. The distance blurred details, but one muttered, "That's no shrimp waste." Another hushed him sharply, "Quiet. Don't invite trouble." Fear sealed their lips. Mrs. Siti's reputation only deepened the silence. She was known as generous, slipping gifts to officials and once paying tuition for the mayor's nephew. Finally, Mr. Wardy, long burdened by what he'd seen, braved a talk with R.W. Surya, the neighborhood chief. His voice trembled as he recounted the screams he'd once heard in a storm. Surya's response crushed him. "Be careful, Wardy. Don't spread baseless claims. Mrs. Siti supports this community. If you're wrong, you'll disgrace all of us." Wardy left with his heart heavy. He knew the truth of what he'd heard, but no one would stand with him. Nights dragged on. Storms battered the coast, and once again cries seeped through the rain, muffled pleas for mercy, then silence. By the summer of 2023, heat baked the little fishing town. Dust rolled in with dry winds, crickets hummed, yet the shadow of missing souls lingered. People whispered only in corners, at coffee stands and markets, never aloud. Until one evening when a single outburst turned gossip into wildfire. Ranga, stumbling home from a tavern, reeked of alcohol. His hair was a mess, his eyes red. Boys sitting by the road jeered. "Watch it, drunkard, or you'll fall into the ditch." Ranga spun, eyes half shut, and roared, "You think my mother's shrimp paste is just shrimp? Ah, you idiots don't know a thing." The boys froze. One teased nervously, "What is it then, anchovies?" Ranga cackled, voice thick with liquor. "Not fish. Something better. Something that makes people crave it. If you knew, you'd vomit." His words chilled them. Moments later he collapsed, still laughing, and passed out cold. By morning, his drunken rambling had spread like wildfire. "They say her paste isn't shrimp at all," hissed voices in the market. "If not shrimp, then what? Could it be human?" The rumor swelled, children taunting, "Human shrimp paste. Human shrimp paste," before bolting in nervous giggles. When a loyal buyer repeated it to Mrs. Siti, her face stayed calm, but her eyes flared with fury. That night she cornered Ranga. "What did you say out there?" Still groggy, he muttered, "I was drunk, Mom." Her hand cracked across his cheek. "From now on, keep your mouth shut. Not a word about this house leaves your lips." But the spark was already lit. Traders began returning her goods, whispering, "Sorry, customers won't touch it anymore." Mrs. Siti forced a thin smile, but inside rage boiled. For Nadia, the young journalist, this was the turning point. She underlined 2 words in her notebook, human paste. She held back from publishing yet, but her resolve hardened. She had to dig deeper. Meanwhile, Ayu's life crumbled. At school, kids shifted away from her desk. "That's the daughter of the shrimp paste woman," they muttered. She ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and sobbed. At home, silence hung heavy, her mother's temper sharper than ever. Mr. Wardy clung to Ranga's drunken slip as validation of his fears. He told neighbors, "I once heard a man's cries from her kitchen. Now you see, it wasn't just my imagination." Some started to believe. Others clung to doubt. But where's the proof? Still, the market was no longer the same. Families dumped her paste into the river, hands trembling. The breaking point came when a young mother bought a packet, opened it, and recoiled pale-faced. "What if it's true?" she whispered, shoving it away. Onlookers froze. Eyes turned suspiciously toward Mrs. Siti's stall. Her face was blank, but fire burned in her stare. Behind her, Ranga hung his head, while Ayu clutched a basket, trembling. The once proud paste had become a symbol of dread. Rumors of human paste spread through every lane. By day, life appeared normal. By night, fear pressed down. Doors locked early, lamps dimmed, streets hushed. Curiosity gnawed at a group of boys, Rifki, Tono, Armin, and Bayu. "If we stay quiet, nothing will change," Rifki said. Tono warned, "But if we're wrong, it could kill us. She's tied to powerful people." Armin clenched his fists, "Which is exactly why we must know the truth." They agreed to spy on her home. From the bushes near her backyard, they saw her kitchen lights blazing. A machine ground loudly. Something heavy dragged across the floor. Then the back door creaked open. Ranga stepped out, lugging a sack that scraped the dirt. His breath heaved. Moments later, Siti emerged, bucket in hand. She poured a dark liquid by the old well. The stench hit them, sharp, metallic, and foul. Bayu gagged, whispering, "Dear God." The boys fled, terror pounding in their veins. The next day, Armin said firmly, "That wasn't shrimp paste. Why else hide it at night?" Tono hesitated. "We need proof. Loose talk could get us killed." Still, gossip grew louder. Some swore Ranga dumped sacks into the estuary. Others claimed to hear muffled cries. Fear thickened like fog. Wardy pressed R.W. Surya again. "I saw a sack dragged behind her house. We can't ignore this." Surya sighed. "I hear you. But without proof, my hands are tied." Wardy walked away frustrated, but sensed Surya's certainty was beginning to crack. Nadia's conviction only grew. She now had eyewitness accounts. In her notebook, one word blazed: investigation. That night, Ayu woke to clattering in the kitchen. Peeking from her door, she froze. Her mother stood with a gleaming knife, her face expressionless. Ayu slammed her door shut and wept in silence. The next day, classmates whispered, "Everyone's watching your house. It's only a matter of time." Ayu crumbled under the weight. Stones were thrown into their yard, children jeering human paste as they ran. Women warned each other to stay away. The family became pariahs. The town simmered like a pot about to boil over. The word hung everywhere: human shrimp paste. R.W. Surya grew desperate, trying to calm unrest. But he could no longer contain it. Then came the discovery. At low tide, old fisherman Haji Musa caught a stench by the estuary. In the mangroves lay a torn burlap sack, leaking dark fluid. Gagging, he fled shouting, "There's a cursed sack by the water." Crowds gathered. With trembling hands, the sack was dragged ashore and torn open. Inside lay not fish, but flesh and bone. Gasps erupted. "This isn't an animal," a woman cried. "It must be Siti's work. I saw Ranga carrying sacks," yelled a young man. Some muttered denial, but the stench betrayed the truth. Fear turned to rage. R.W. Surya rushed in, begging, "Don't act rashly. Let the police handle this." But his words were drowned in fury. Mr. Wardy stepped forward, voice shaking with vindication. "I warned you. And now here's the proof." The mob surged toward Siti's house. Nadia scribbled furiously, "Sack of human remains discovered. Locals link it to Siti." This was no longer rumor. This was national news. Inside, Ayu trembled at the window. "God, don't let them break in," she whispered. She turned on Ranga. "This is your fault." He lowered his head. "I was tired of the lies. I couldn't keep quiet." The door creaked open. Mrs. Siti stepped onto the porch, eyes cold. "You all swallow gossip too easily," she said flatly. "My paste is clean. Don't like it? Don't buy it. But don't slander me." Shouts exploded. "Then why was that sack by the river?" Before the mob could rush her, officers arrived, blocking the path. "Calm yourselves," Surya cried. "If there's evidence, the law will decide." The mob pulled back, but suspicion burned. That night, the town was not the same. People lingered outside her home, whispering. Children dared one another to peek. Adults spoke in hushed tones. Everyone knew, after that sack was found, the whispers had turned into accusation. And from that day, the little fishing town was never truly at peace again. But whispers never stopped, slipping from porch to porch. Human shrimp paste. 2 days after the estuary discovery, a police cruiser from Bayfield County rolled into town. Unlike local officials who only tried to calm the crowd, these officers came with sharper intent. They sat with Chief Surya and a few community leaders, quietly mapping out surveillance plans. No public statement was made, but their presence was impossible to hide. "The cops are involved now," murmured a woman at the farmer's market. That meant the gossip had crossed into dangerous truth. From that day, Mrs. Sloane's house became the beating heart of everyone's suspicion. By daylight, life looked normal, shrimp paste drying on racks, smoke rising from the chimney. But at night, lamps burned far too late. From the road, neighbors saw shadows pacing behind drawn curtains. Rifki, Armin, and Bayu, the boys who had spied before, were certain something inside was being concealed. "If the police drag their feet, the evidence will vanish," Rifki muttered. Armin added, "The town's on edge. Even one slip could set this place ablaze." Mr. Wardy grew anxious too. "If this drags on, I fear the people will take justice into their own hands, he told a neighbor, his voice shaking. Inside the house, dread thickened. Ava lived in constant fear. She often caught her mother sitting alone in the kitchen, staring blankly at the linoleum floor, lips moving in meaningless murmurs. "Mom, what's really happening?" Ava asked one night, her voice trembling. Mrs. Sloane turned slowly, her eyes cold and hollow. "Never ask that again. We are family. Whatever comes, we bear it together." The words felt less like comfort and more like a threat. Ava stepped back, her whole body quivering. Raymond spiraled into despair. Nearly every night, he drowned himself in liquor, passing out on the porch with empty bottles at his side. "I can't do this anymore. Everyone's eyes burn holes through me," he muttered. He felt caged, too afraid to leave but suffocated staying in. Tension spiked when the police began open surveillance. 2 officers parked at the end of Mrs. Sloane's street, pretending to blend in with townsfolk, though everyone knew their real purpose. Children pointed, whispering, "Those cops are watching her house." Reactions split the village. Some sighed in relief. Others grew more fearful. "If she's hiding something, what if she strikes back?" worried one mother. The next night, boys spied again. They saw Raymond carrying a heavy bucket to the ditch, dumping its contents. A foul stench spread, and the water turned a dark reddish hue swarming with flies. "That's not normal waste," Bayou whispered, pale and gagging. The next morning, a child playing near the ditch ran home crying. "Mama, the water smells like blood." His words spread like wildfire, sealing suspicion in every corner. At the town hall, neighbors cornered Chief Surya. "If the cops won't act, we'll handle this ourselves," one man shouted. Surya tried to calm them, but his face drained. His grip on authority was slipping. Some even muttered, "If the chief can't protect us, he should step down." The insult cut deep. He feared both riots and losing his role. Gossip spilled into surrounding towns. At the Bayfield market, vendors refused to stock shrimp paste from Willow Creek. "Customers might think it came from her," one muttered, shoving jars aside. For Willow Creek residents, it was humiliation. Their proud fishing town was branded cursed. Families burned leftover jars, while others called pastors to lead prayers, begging for deliverance. Nadia, the young reporter, watched closely, no longer just jotting notes. She was piecing together an investigation that could explode nationwide. But the closer she drew, the heavier the danger felt. Nights in Willow Creek turned suffocatingly silent, broken only by crickets and dogs barking. Mrs. Sloane's house sat still, but carried secrets that poisoned the entire town. Everyone knew, sooner or later something would erupt. On one scorching morning, the quiet shattered. 2 police SUVs stopped at Mrs. Sloane's gate. Officers stepped out with folders, cameras, and evidence kits. Chief Surya stood nearby, voice trembling as he addressed the crowd. "Starting today, Mrs. Sloane's house will be searched." Villagers swarmed the street, unwilling to leave though too fearful to get close. All eyes fixed on the house, waiting for hidden truths to claw their way out. Mrs. Sloane emerged onto the porch, calm, expression flat, eyes cold. "Go ahead," she said softly, almost mocking. "I have nothing to hide." Police entered. The front looked ordinary, simple furniture, racks of dried shrimp. But in the back kitchen things shifted. An officer opened a large bucket in the corner. Inside was a thick mixture, shrimp paste blended with dark, rubbery clumps. The stench was unbearable. "This needs to be tested," an officer said, gagging. Peeking neighbors whispered, "What is that?" Ava hid in her room, sobbing silently. She knew the truth surfacing meant her family's ruin. Meanwhile, Raymond sat slumped in a chair, hands trembling, lips quivering as though he wanted to confess, yet fear sealed him. Officers moved to the backyard. Near the old well, soil looked freshly disturbed. A shovel pierced the dirt, striking something hard. The officer pulled free a long bone, blackened flesh still clinging. Screams split the air. Women fainted. Men gagged. Children cried. "That's human," someone wailed. "Dear God, what have we been eating?" Chief Surya nearly collapsed, leaning on the fence as his defenses crumbled. Police yelled for order, but the crowd broke, some sobbing, others raging. Through it all, Mrs. Sloane smiled faintly, her voice chilling. "You want the truth? The truth is buried beneath your feet. But beware, it may destroy you." Not a denial, but a threat. Nadia scribbled furiously, "This is the heart of the story." Officers dug deeper, unearthing more bones. A grieving mother cried out, "Maybe this is my son." The wail carried across the crowd like a knife. That day, Willow Creek's identity shattered. No longer a fishing village, it became the stage of a nightmare. Rumors had twisted into undeniable horror. By evening, yellow tape sealed the property. An officer declared, "This house is now a crime scene. Mrs. Sloan and her children will be investigated." The mob roared, "If it's a crime scene, why isn't she in cuffs? Arrest her now." But police struggled to calm them. At the chapel, neighbors prayed for souls thought to rest beneath her soil. The once bustling market collapsed. Shrimp paste rotted unsold, fishermen stayed ashore. The town suffocated in shame. Chief Surya couldn't walk without hearing, "You said it was gossip. Now look." Ava locked herself away, unable to bear the whispers. Every time she heard her mother's name, it cut like glass. Raymond wept, whispering, "I can't keep this secret. I have to confess." But Mrs. Sloan sat unmoved, smirking as if holding some twisted pride. When asked, "Did you kill them?" she only whispered, "The truth will surface, but can you bear it?" Days later, a district officer arrived with lab results. The bones are human. One matches a missing man, Richard, a laborer. A woman collapsed, screaming, "That's my boy." The crowd wept. The officer added, "The investigation will expand. Remain calm." But fury ignited. Youths lifted banners. Death penalty for Mrs. Sloan. Others wept in prayer. The economy collapsed further. Children mocked one another, "You ate human paste." The shame was unbearable. Ava whispered in despair, "It would be better if I disappeared." Raymond broke to a young officer, "There weren't 1 or 2 sacks, there were 3. I helped carry them. I stayed quiet, because Mom said if I spoke I'd be buried too." Meanwhile, Ava admitted through tears, "I saw a knife covered in blood. Mom said it was chicken, but I knew." That afternoon, police escorted the Sloans out under heavy guard. Villagers screamed, "Traitors! Don't let them return." At the precinct, under harsh lights, investigators confronted Mrs. Sloan with evidence, human bones. "Dine. Flesh in your paste. Time to confess." She smiled faintly, "You needed paperwork to believe? For years your own mouths were proof enough." "Why Richard? He was innocent," an officer pressed. Her eyes gleamed. "You don't understand. I was a widow, mocked and belittled. But when they ate my paste they forgot their insults. They craved me. I had power over them, and they never knew." Her words weren't a defense, they were a crown of twisted pride.